Guys, it is early in the morning. I am super excited to talk about Andrzej Żuławski. This is a video that I've thought about doing since almost February. It was just finding all of his films, watching them the way that I wanted to watch them, except for one, which I'll talk about that a little bit later. And he's a very interesting filmmaker because I truly think, because I feel like he's being reevaluated, which he completely deserves. He's up there, I think, with people like Kubrick and Tarkovsky and Bergman and Hitchcock and all the greats. He is. I feel like that. He's a little bit more sporadic than those people. I feel like he's definitely more controversial, but I love his vision, and he doesn't just stick to one genre. Although, even though you're watching a drama or a horror film or a thriller or a mystery or a period piece or an opera, they're all different genres, but they all feel like a Zulawski film. And those are my favorite types of filmmakers. Those are the filmmakers that I look up to and study. Zulawski is the perfect example of that. Now, his films are kind of hard to find. I'm not going to lie. I have a bunch of them here. I do have Cosmos and My Nights Are More Beautiful Than Your Days, but I just didn't pull them out. I didn't feel like reaching into the old movie pile. But we have Fidelity, which this was like $40, I think, almost, and this is the DVD. Boris Gundov, which that one was like $30, and then Mad Love, which I got this on Blu-ray from Kino Lober. I wish I would have got the Mondo Vision release. I didn't. That's the end of that. But yeah, I got it on Blu-ray for Kino Lober. But the rest of these, like Possession, I have the Mondo version or Mondo Vision limited release, which is probably one of my favorite films in my collection. Just in terms of like packaging and such. And it's crazy because Andrzej Żuławski has his own label that are dedicated to releasing his films. I believe in Region A specifically. I could be wrong about that. And that's Mondo Vision. And they've done all of his films except for a handful of them. Which, if they do decide to release more, I do want to get. I probably will get Third Part of the Night, On the Silver Globe, and The Devil if they do release those like this. Because this is the only one I have like this, and I think it would be so cool to have his whole filmography like this, but I don't. And then I have some other Mondo Vision releases. These aren't the ultra special limited edition ones, but these are still the special edition DVDs. Well, this one's actually a Blu-ray. The Blue Note, The Public Woman, The Most Important Thing, Love, and I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Samika? I don't know. I'm going to just butcher it the whole entire video, and everybody will be okay. And his stuff is not cheap. But and there's one more I got in. The Eureka Region B set that comes with the original Polish trilogy. So, yeah. And like I said, I've enjoyed collecting his films, even though it's been kind of expensive. I still think it's worth it. Now, I'm going to just actually start this video. We're almost 5 minutes in, and I haven't even started the ranking, so let's get to that. So, some people think that he only has 12 films, and he actually has 13 that I know of. I'm pretty sure it's just 13. But coming in last place at number 13, we have Boris Godunov. I pronounced it earlier and I just was about to mess it up. I didn't really care about a lot of the stuff that was going on. I mean, it had good production design, but it's a 2-hour long opera. And I like opera, but just the film itself, again, it's interesting. I just couldn't really get into it that much. And this is one that I'm pretty sure a lot of people have not seen. I think there's like 700 reviews on IMDb. But it's not a horrible film. It's not a bad film. And maybe some people might accept it more than me, but personally, I wasn't really that big of a fan. Coming in at number 12 is Cosmos. This is his most recent film that he did before he passed away. I liked it. I was hooked, the first half. The second half, I kind of lost a little bit of interest. It was filmed very weird. It almost felt like a soap opera in a way. But again, not bad. It's just compared to his other works, there's better. There's better. It was quirky, very, very, very quirky. But it was kind of hard to follow. I'm not gonna lie, especially typical Żuławski fashion. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible. Coming in at number 11 is Mad Love. Now, this film is just absolutely insane. Again, it's another one of those films. I feel like it was a little hard to follow. Again, I could just be missing the point there, but yeah, some of the characters were too much in this film. There was a lot of stuff that was going on. In a way, I kind of got some Dark Knight vibes, kind of like throughout it, and I know that's a weird film to compare it to, but I did like the direction that it went in at times. And it was entertaining, but I think it was entertaining for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion. Definitely one of his craziest works, and I will say this about Żuławski, and I'm not dissing on him whatsoever, but he has his female characters do some pretty crazy things. It's like every 5 seconds, even if something serious is happening, they're grabbing their face, they're screaming, they're falling onto the ground. Yeah, Mad Love, yeah, that's basically the whole film. Coming in at number 10 is the most important thing, love. This film is an amazing romance. It puts our characters in an interesting situation, and there's, like I said, you get to see they grow. These characters grow, and that's something that I love to watch, especially in romance films. I really like to see the characters grow because if they grow, their relationship grows. And it's an interesting love triangle. Triangle. It's an interesting love triangle that shows guilt and portrays guilt in a very almost horrifying way. A very intimate and intriguing horrifying way, if I can put it at that. One thing that Żuławski does really well, and if you notice, a lot of his films do feature romance and two central core characters. And again, we're just at what? This is number 10. We're at number 10, and I love all of his films from here. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He understands his vision. Look, Andrzej Żuławski is the type of person that does this and doesn't care. If you look at his critics' reviews, critic scores, or whatever, Rotten Tomato scores, which I don't really base a film off of its score or my opinion on a film off of its score, but his scores are all over the place. I mean, this man ranges from 40% to 100%. He does what he wants, and that's why it's kind of admirable, I'm not going to lie. Coming in at number 9 is The Public Woman. Now, one thing that I did take away from this film is the car chases were absolutely fantastic. And it had a fun, great atmosphere. The ending was poetic. Again, this is another one of his sort of romance films, you know, with two central core characters that we follow. And again, I like his romance films. And some of his films are really hard to explain. And I'm not going to even sit here and try to explain this film completely. I know that might sound a little bit lazy, but again, you know, when it comes to Żuławski, and I have no shame in admitting it, sometimes his films are just hard to follow, and you just have to accept it and sort of just see where they're going and what direction he's taking, and just take away what you can. But I did enjoy The Public Woman, and I remember the car chases. They were like crazy. I liked them. Coming in at number 8 is My Nights Are More Beautiful Than Your Days. Now, I wish I would have had a better viewing experience for this film. Again, this is another romance film, but it's an interesting one because it's basically this guy, he has an issue with his brain, and it sort of, I guess, makes him sort of forget things. He loses his memory throughout, and that makes, honestly, for a very interesting romance film because kind of the whole point of being with someone is to develop memories and grow and, you know, experience life together. And if somebody's just forgetting that stuff, it's kind of sad. It is. But I love the ending. I won't spoil it, but it had a very beautiful ending. Żuławski is really good with his endings. He's a very poetic filmmaker, and I love that. If your name is Andrzej, you're just going to make great films. Andrzej Żuławski, Andrzej Tarkovsky, Andrzej Żuławski. If your name's Andrzej, you don't even need talent. You just need the name. But I wish I would have had a better viewing experience because a lot of Żuławski's films, most of his films are filmed in the typical 1:6:6:1 aspect, or not the typical, but it's the European aspect ratio of 1:6:6:1. And I believe I had to watch this one in 4:3 just because I could not find an appropriate version of this film to buy. I did end up buying the DVD. I bought 2 copies of the DVD, And yeah, it was the same thing. But if hopefully it does get re-released by some other label, and I would like to watch it in a more appropriate manner. Coming in at number 7 is okay. So I pronounced uh Sazamaka or whatever. I pronounced that wrong. There's a better name for it. She Shaman. That's the name of the film. She Shaman. Again, another very poetic film, a very poetic ending. I wasn't really a fan of how it was executed though, but it's still a very intriguing film. And the interesting thing about She Shaman is it actually was not written by Żuławski. It was I think it was the only film that he did not write. He actually directed another screenplay, but this feels like a Żuławski film. And I can even see why from the screenplay alone he would want to do this type of film, because it's right up his alley. And I love it. And that's the thing about directors, is a lot of the times some people do consider a complete filmography when a director sort of writes and directs his own stuff and sort of goes through it, and not a director for hire. I do believe that if a director finds a script that he really likes and he can actually add to it, I think they can make that film more of their own than something that they wrote themselves, because they're taking another source of material and projecting it on the screen with their vision. And I think doing that the right way is a feat in itself and very impressive. But great atmosphere, great cinematography. I love the colors in this film. Another romance to an extent, but they find this body of a shaman. It's very weird. It is a very weird film. I see this film get a lot of hate, and I don't know why. I thought it was great. I thought it was a good film. Number 6 is The Blue Note, and I don't even think this has a Wikipedia page. But this is a period piece, sort of showing the final days of Chopin, whatever. I'm a big fan of classical music, and I can't even pronounce his name right. Maybe I did. I don't know. Just let me know in the comments below. I love the first half of this film. The first half was great, like really good. I was completely just awestruck by the performances and the costumes and the setting, the location. The last half, again, it's just typical Żuławski. He goes off the rails. He goes crazy. Everybody's grabbing their face, falling on the ground, and screaming. But in this film, not as much. But I do like the direction that he took this. I thought it was very interesting to, it is sort of not necessarily a biopic to an extent. It is more so, I think, a fictional look at a very great classical composer. That's how I'll look at it. And I don't know why, but I thought Klaus Kaczynski was in this film. He wasn't. Number 5 is Fidelity. I actually did not expect to love this film as much as I did. And it's one of his longest films. I think it's his longest film behind On the Silver Globe, which is almost 3 hours. And this is 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes. It had a great soundtrack. It's long. It's a long, epic film. A romance film, of course, again. But I just loved it. I was just completely taken aback. Especially, you notice, I'm going to say the first half of a lot of his films are really good. Again, the first half of this film was great. The second half was still really good. Didn't like how some things were executed, but I still really, really just, golly, I really enjoyed Fidelity. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. And I actually considered not even watching this film because it was so hard to find. And I was just going to do like a top 10, but no, I'm so glad that I did, because it was so, so good. And I feel like that this film, I felt like everybody was sort of tame to an extent. Everybody was sort of where they needed to be. They weren't all over the place. And I appreciated that. Again, I appreciated that. And this is one of his more recent works. I think this is actually, he didn't make another film for like 14 to 16 years after this, which was Cosmos. But I would definitely recommend checking out Fidelity. I would love for this film to get a Blu-ray or a 4K if possible. I would love for his films to get 4Ks. That would be lit. Don't know if I'd buy all of them in 4K, but I would definitely probably buy some. I don't know why I'm talking about this. But, even with it being a long film, it did take sort of a weird direction, and it could have been a little bit shorter. But for the most part, hey, I liked it. Now we're getting into the masterpieces. I think all of these films are almost perfect. Coming in at number 4 is his first feature film, The Third Part of the Night. If you want to talk about a great opening, this film has an amazing, memorable, I feel like even almost iconic opening. Again, it's a hard film to follow, but it's meant to be a hard film to follow. It's set during the Nazi occupation of Poland, and they're doing these experiments. It's really cool. It's very cool. The ending was great. He always does something, it seems, very poetic with all of his endings. I love it. I just, even if I don't agree with it or it's kind of weird for me, I still love what he does. Very strong directorial debut. Fantastic film. I loved it. I just loved it. It was great. Coming in at number three is The Devil. This is his second feature film. He uses the same actors and actresses. I'm not even going to sit here and try to pronounce their names, but he will reuse the same actors and actresses for some of his films. And in this case, he did for Third Part of the Night and The Devil, I think, for a few. The Devil is set in the 1790s in Poland. And this guy, or I keep saying this guy, no, not this guy, this soldier is rescued by a mysterious man, and then he goes on a mass murder spree, basically. But it goes deeper than that. Excuse me. And it's more than that. And he gets to sort of meet up with his family, and you sort of get to see what's been going on with his family. And again, another extremely poetic ending, but it's shocking. This film has some pretty shocking moments to it. And it felt like an adventure. At 2 hours, it felt a lot longer than it was, but it felt like I was going on an adventure. And Żuławski is, and something that I haven't touched on is the way that he does his cinematography and the way that he lets the camera move. He's a very comforting director to watch because it shows that, especially, when you have like a newer filmmaker or somebody that's just getting into filmmaking, doing low budget films or micro budget or whatever, and their camera's just moving all over the place, and a lot of people aren't used to that, or they see that it's lazy. As soon as somebody does it on a bigger scale, with like $1 million, like you look at somebody like Lars von Trier, or even the new Dungeons and Dragons had a couple of shots, I believe, that were like that. One specifically that threw me off. It's looked at as lazy or amateurish, but no, it's a style of filmmaking. And that's one thing that I really love about Żuławski is his camera's just all over the place. If the camera shakes, it shakes. Okay, you're watching a movie. And I know sometimes people don't want to be reminded that they're watching a movie, and that's fine. There are some films that, again, like Kubrick, I love Kubrick, and I love how smooth his work is with the Steadicam and such. In his later films, like Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon, very handheld. But yeah, I love how Żuławski approaches his cinematography. And I love the POV shots that he does where you're watching what a character's doing from like a point of view. It's so good. It's so good. Coming in at number two. Now, I watched this last night in its entirety, the way that it should have been watched. I had an old, very low quality burnt DVD of this like a long time ago. And this is On the Silver Globe. This film is kind of sad because Żuławski never got to finish it. He actually started production on this film in the 70s, and the government came in and basically halted production, seized all the assets, and he didn't get to finish it. And throughout the film, even the opening of the film, I believe it is Żuławski narrating, saying that 1/5 of the film is, will never be filmed. And that basically, to fill in those spots, whatever's supposed to happen, he just goes around the town, runs around with the camera, records random things, and then narrates what was supposed to happen. And that happens a few times in the film. Now, while I do like that, and by the way, it's a science fiction epic, and I want to talk about that a little bit. Like in my notes right here, a vast epic, a bit confusing at times, I always say that, and inconvenient that it was not finished, still shines due to amazing scope and superb cinematography. Feels like it's, well, I'll get to that in a second. I do believe, and again, it works what he was doing in it, but I really wish that maybe he would have done illustrations, or maybe even tried to have somebody animate what was going on in those scenes. I think that would have worked out a little bit, just showed a little animation of some sorts, like a drawing, cave painting, something like that. I strongly believe that would have helped. I know some people might disagree, that's cool, but I think that would have helped, and I was thinking about that as I was watching it. But at the same time, the way I also look at it is maybe when we look at that, and we look at like the stuff set in the 80s, because this film is set on a completely different planet from Earth. Earth is in the future, dystopian like. we're just seeing how the world used to be over the narrations of how everything is now. And no, it's the cinematography is absolutely fantastic. It's beautiful. Again, another one of those poetic endings. Probably the most poetic ending I've ever seen in a film, and I think a very fitting end to his filmography for me. Watching it, I will say when the scenes where they're on another planet are absolutely they're mesmerizing. You actually feel like they're on another planet, and it's so impressive. I mean, it is actually so impressive. I love it. I just was blown away, completely blown away. And I wish he would have had a chance to finish this film. If he did, and we got to see the epic original vision, it might have been at number one. And coming in at number one, I don't think this is any surprise to anybody that's a fan of Zulawski. Coming in at number one is Possession with Sam Neill. I The first time I watched this film, I was not a fan of it. I actually saw a censored version, and I was not the biggest fan. I was actually somewhat disappointed. I watched it in low quality. It wasn't a good time. The acting is a little bit all over the place. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like some performances could have been better, especially at the beginning of the film. But the direction and the story are just amazing. To where you just completely forget about that. You just completely forget about all of it. I just the subtext is just so strong. It's so cool to sort of see Andrzej Żuławski make a horror film, and this was after On the Silver Globe, where he basically retreated to France and made a horror film out of anger. Seems like every good director does that. I'm just kidding. And I liked it. I mean, I loved it. The second time that I watched this film for a rewatch, I was completely mesmerized, and I understood everything a whole lot better. And I loved the whole doppelganger thing and the change with the eyes. And it's such a smart and very intellectual film, and an intellectual look on love and heartbreak. And while all of his other films are showing characters romantically involved, this film is showing characters splitting apart, and that's something that's just it's so different for Zulawski, and you could tell that he was sending a message for this, for that film specifically. And speaking of 4Ks, it is getting a 4K from Second Sight, but yeah, Possession is just a fantastic film, and that's it. That's Andrzej Żuławski. I've had a lot of fun doing this video. Again, thank you guys for watching. I'm so glad I got to talk about Zulawski. I'm so glad that I got to view all of his films and just study them, and sort of just find another filmmaker that I just can latch on to and just really love and enjoy. And yeah, I don't know what director I'm going to do next, or what director I'm going to talk about next in terms of discovering another filmography. I know I need to watch more Bergman and Fellini, Neri Bilge and I need to watch some more of his films. But I'm kind of wanting to revisit Tarkovsky too. But we'll see what happens next. Let me know what type of ranking you would like to see down in the comments below. But anyway, guys, let me know what your favorite Zulawski film is as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.